Welcome back to Gruber Motor Company. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Richard Beach.
And we're here to talk about electric vehicles today and entertain questions that you may have regarding the latest trends in EVs, the market, and whatever else you feel is pertinent. We have our other two streaming platforms live here already between Instagram and TikTok. And we're open to entertaining questions as we present information, so feel free to chime in, participate, and even answer some of these questions. Many of you have expertise beyond ours even out there, and we welcome your inputs. So one of the things we wanted to cover this morning is, we did a video last week on the 4680 EV battery cells. The first thing that we wanted to discuss is, where does this numerical name come from, 4680? It's the size of the cell in millimeters, of course, metric these days. And the 4680 is a cell that is 46 millimeters wide and 80 millimeters tall, compared to the original lithium-ion cells that everyone's familiar with, the 18650. If you drop the zero, you've got 1860, which is 18 millimeters wide and 60 millimeters tall. Then later came the 2170, which again, 21 wide, 70 tall. And now we have this big giant soup can battery, which Tesla has been pioneering along with a few other companies like CATL in China. And this appears to be the next trend in DC storage for electric vehicles. Let me prepare you, there's going to be a lot of iterations of these batteries as the design improves, as field tests come back, and companies continue to innovate and make even more efficient batteries that pack more power into smaller spaces, which is what it's all about. Lighten the car, reduce the size of the battery, and let us go 1,000,000 miles. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about is the advantages of this new 4680 much larger cylindrical battery. And it does most of the things that people were hoping for with solid-state batteries. It has a faster charging rate. It's about 15 minutes for a much bigger battery or charge. More range, about 16% more range. It has 6 times more power. Here's an important one. It has a non-flammable electrolyte. That's the chemistry inside the cell, which is far less prone to what they call thermal events or fires. There's less cost, weight, and space. Obviously, if you have a larger cylindrical battery, you're going to need fewer of those in an existing battery system. To give you an example, in the Model S, there were just over 7,000 cells, 18650 cells, 7,104 to be exact for an 85 kW. In a Roadster, there were 6,831 little cylindrical 18650 cells, same thing that you use in your vape cigarette machines if you're a smoker. This new battery is much larger, and I wish I had one here that I could hold up and show you, but picture a soup can and then just reduce the size by about 30%, and you've got an 18 or a 4680 cell. Some of the technical components, again, are less internal resistance, less internal heating, it's easier to cool, and it allegedly has a longer life. It uses less materials, so there's less manufacturing costs, and it has become a more efficient way to store DC energy. It should also be pointed out, yes, I think we have some comments.
Yeah, we got some people. Oh, sorry, let me unmute myself here. We have some people that are talking about the video we just released about that structural pack as well.
Okay.
Some more cell-related stuff. Everybody's got the same question, more or less. Do you think these new packs will be repairable considering the construction? I think we should address that since we just had a video come out about it.
All right. The big concern with this new battery pack, which was initially reverse engineered by a company called Munro Associates, run by Sandy Munro. They actually got one of these packs, opened it up, and found that it was completely potted with a pink compound. which covered and hid all of the cells, the electronics, the connecting points. And the immediate concern was, how is something like this repairable? Because out here in the aftermarket space, we actually open up battery packs and fix them. At the Tesla service centers, they replace. And we don't know what happens to that battery pack that's deemed defective after it gets removed from a car. We're assuming it goes somewhere to be processed, either recycled or possibly even opened up and repaired, like they do with the Model S battery packs. But the concern was there was so much potting compound embedded around these cells that it would require an archaeological dig to get at anything inside this pack. The purpose of our video was to show that we've been dealing with these issues now for many, many years, because the Tesla Roadster also had 18650 cells that were potted and completely sealed with a thermal potting compound. And the DC to DC converter in a Tesla Roadster is also buried in potting compound, miles of it, and they put vital components underneath it, like transistors, capacitors, resistors, IGBTs, MOSFETs, all components that fail that can be replaced to make the unit operational again. What we've been doing for years is fundamentally digging out the potting compound to get at the components to repair these types of devices. And our plan is to do the same thing with this 4680 battery pack. It is infinitely cheaper to repair something that large than to replace it. And that's the financial justifications for companies like us innovating and finding ways to repair them. I would suggest, if you're interested, watch our video. We show examples of the old potting compound and the new potting compound. Many thanks to Sandy Monroe and his organization for supplying us video materials and images of their teardown. And there's also a new video that was just released by Monroe and Associates, which is worth watching, which is a follow-up to what they're finding now that they have it open, and some of their ideas about how to service and maintain this pack and how to deal with all that potting compound. Any other questions?
Yeah. We have a couple more. This one came in on YouTube from Corey. It says, do you recommend the AC receiver dryer be changed every 2 years? That is not common in ICE cars unless you open the AC system. What are your thoughts?
You know, it sounds like an HVAC question for the rest of the viewers here. Should the AC dryer be changed, which is common in ICE cars and in EVs? I'm going to bow out of that one because I don't know much about the AC in EVs or in ICE cars.
Okay, well, that's all right. We got another one from TikTok.
TikTok question, okay.
This one says, this is from Ferris Bueller. It says, does the 15-minute rapid charge wear battery life down quicker than the longer charge time?
And this is from a TikTok viewer called Ferris Bueller. You're the guy that, in that movie, that Ferrari that went through the window. I understand that that was unintentional. It wasn't supposed to go through, and something actually got wrecked and damaged. I just saw an article about that recently. And you know, those old Ferraris are worth millions nowadays. But, I'm sorry, what was the question?
15-minute charge time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the charge time. A lot of details are being revealed, but as these chemistries improve, the goals are not only to reduce weight, increase power, but to decrease charge times, to decrease their sensitivity to thermal events or fire. So those are all design elements that they're looking at. And of course, to reduce production costs, using fewer cells definitely reduces the production time. It should be noted at this point that cylindrical cells, there are two types of storage systems in EVs. You have your prismatic cells, which are essentially rectangular pouch batteries. They're not round, in other words. And then you have your cylindrical cells. Legend has it that Tesla selected a cylindrical cell early on with the Tesla Roadster because they wanted to avoid making royalty payments on the other types of cells, the prismatic cells. And the founders of Tesla were familiar with the e-book concept in laptops, and they decided to use what they called at the time laptop batteries, or 18650 cells. From a space density standpoint, cylindrical is not quite as efficient as being able to stack a prismatic type DC storage system, because you have gaps in between. But they use those gaps and fill them with thermal potting compound to allow additional cooling. And actually, the 18650 cylindrical cell usage in EVs turned out to be one of the revolutionary designs. In that they were cheap, they were quick to manufacture, and plentiful. And with proper cooling, you ended up with a battery system that was far superior to the old lead acid or the absorbent glass mat methods.
All right, and then we have one more from Ben Burgess. This is from YouTube as well. Just simple, are older batteries obsolete now? Not exactly sure what that's referring to. But.
Okay, question from Ben on TikTok is, are old batteries now obsolete? You know, obsolescence is a strong word. For example, in the critical power business, where we also thrive and flourish, lithium-ion packs aren't plentiful yet. They're very few. They're only in small UPSs and battery backup systems. They're still using lead-acid design. They're still using absorbent glass mat design. And sometimes the markets are slow to respond. A number of reasons, you know, maturity in their manufacturing processes. They can't pivot quickly to a new design. So no, they will not be obsolete. We will transition, and we will continue to see improvements. And it will be the brave companies that are willing to adopt new technologies and take a risk and put them into the products that we enjoy.
Nice. Okay, Richard, do you see anything coming over on Instagram at all? I don't have that up back here.
Let's take a look.
And then we do have one more, I think. Oh, you got one over there?
I do.
Okay.
So any thoughts on the increasing EV demand and growing shortage of raw materials to make the batteries?
Good question. For those of you that may not have heard that, is there a raw material issue with these new batteries or just EVs in general? You know, what we're addressing here is ongoing manufacturing challenges. There are always shortages of materials. Then there's a high demand for a particular product, and the production capacity has not yet been built up to meet that demand. These are ongoing challenges, but personally, my opinion, I am pleased as can be that the EV transition is occurring as rapidly as it is. Really, no one expected this. It's unprecedented, and you know, it speaks to our ability as humans to innovate and solve problems.
And so we have a couple coming in here on YouTube as well.
A couple of YouTube questions, okay.
A couple more about the structural battery pack. To the people still asking about that, I would say go watch our video. Just came out yesterday. You get a little bit more in depth on that, and what our thoughts on how to fix that.
I don't know if you can hear Jesse, but we're still getting a lot of questions coming in about the new structural battery pack, the 4680 cells that Tesla is using successfully in the Model Y now. And we're suggesting is watch the YouTube video that we just posted yesterday. It gives a good overview into what this is about, what the history is, what led us to this, and some of the design challenges or serviceability challenges that are predicted with this type of design. We're also anxiously waiting for Tesla to release more information about why did they go to this method and how will they solve what appear to be serviceability issues. As we pointed out in our video, our service activity, independent service activity, focuses on out-of-warranty cars. The manufacturers take care of all the repairs while a car is under warranty. So we typically don't see the brand new vehicles, unlike Sandy Monroe, who will take a brand new vehicle and fundamentally tear it down to see what's inside.
Okay, you ready for another one?
We are ready for another question.
Okay, we've got a few of them over here. So, one that is interesting here from YouTube from Martin. What are your thoughts on the Lucid Air Sapphire tri-motor and the Polestar 6 Roadster?
Yeah, we were actually going to talk about that Lucid tri-motor. It's being sold as the Tesla killer. Its performance specifications are over the top, and might be just in time because Lucid is currently facing some supply chain problems, reduced production. But let's go to that article and pull out some of the tips that we found. So 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. Yeah, now we're
For a
definitely
sedan,
Yeah.
that's insane.
You've got the kids, the dog, and grandma in the back seat,
Oh.
and you're suddenly doing 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds. Now, top speed, over 200 miles an hour. Quarter mile, under 9 seconds. When I was a kid, if you got under 12 seconds, they sent you packing, said don't come back until you get a roll cage and all the safety equipment. Now we've got passenger sedans going under 9 seconds.
Wow.
So it is a tri-motor, a design horsepower, something like 1,200 horsepower. And yeah, so what are our thoughts? My personal thought is we live in an exciting time.
Oh, yeah.
We've got technology just, increasing exponentially in so many different categories.
Agreed. And again, this is coming out of Arizona, and we couldn't be more proud. It's a beautiful, beautiful vehicle doing a wonderful thing. As a speed demon myself, I love going fast. This just excites me. It gets it makes my spine tingle. I love it, and it's a beautiful car. That blue, the sapphire blue that they're showing out there, it's gorgeous. If you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Yeah. And the price points aren't bad either. Later on, we'll talk about a company that's coming out with a 12-cylinder with 600 horsepower, and it's over $300,000. And talk about that in a moment here. But so what sort of specs is Rawlinson talking about? Peter Rawlinson, the CEO of Lucid Motors. So for starters, over 1,200 horsepower, nearly 200 horsepower more than the Tesla Model S Plaid by comparison, but quite a bit less than the 1,800 horsepower that the Rimac Navara is putting out, which is one of the hypercars. And what is that, like $2 million or something?
It's something up there.
Yeah. So with these numbers, Lucid is hailing this new tri-motor Air Sapphire as the most powerful sedan in the world. And they did say that the final horsepower ratings will be announced at a later date along with performance demonstrations.
Well, I think they've earned every right to that statement, the most powerful sedan.
Some of the other specs, 0 to 100 in under 4 seconds, quarter mile, of course, in under 9 seconds, and top speed of 200 miles an hour. One has to wonder if they have sufficient aerodynamics to take these things up to 200 miles an hour.
I'm sure somebody's going to find out.
Yeah. Did we pop a picture of it up there on YouTube or on our?
Hold on a second. Is it an article or YouTube video?
We've got a picture posted right now, but yeah, anybody that wants to see it can certainly Google Lucid Sapphire.
And what was the YouTube channel that ran the review? There was a review. Maybe we can shout him out so y'all can go and check it out.
Okay, let me pull up another question here.
While he's looking that up and he's pulling up another question that came along in the last podcast is, what do we think about Lucid stock? Well, it's severely depressed. I think the low in the last 52 weeks was like $13.20. It's been hovering around 16 now, and it's definitely a depressed stock. Questions were, what should we do? Well, I've been investing for 40 years. When a stock tanks on bad news, you buy. You buy all you can because you're going to see it bounce. You're going to see it recover. And you also, of course, have to look at the reasons for it tanking. Did they lose funding? Is there no, are they in the terminal throes of death? Lucid is nowhere near any of that. They have heavy financial backing, none of which is going to pull out. And the company will recover after these supply chain problems and the production delays that they're currently going through right now. And my opinion is, if you buy some now, you'll be very pleased in the next 6 months.
Now, you touched on some good points with that. So I have a background in finance, specifically with stock market. When every single company goes through these things, investors react with a very short-term mindset. If with these supply chain issues, people are selling for whatever reason. You can look at any company, any major S&P 500 company, and you'll see dips, exactly like with what you're seeing with Lucid. You're going to see the same exact thing. And this is where your own personal risk assessment needs to come in, right? Because some people, right, are able to take the risk. Some people are not. And you have to kind of determine that yourself, and you have to, go out, because not every stock is for every single person. You have to look at what the company's potential or their sales are. Lucid you have to look at their foundation, right? They have a solid foundation. Are they going to be blown away by this temporary issue? And you have to decide for yourself, right? It's not likely, and you just have to go from there.
Sure. With heavy Saudi backing, we all know that the Saudis realize that the oil gig is up. It's not going to sustain them into the next century. It's going away. So they badly need a second act. And electric vehicles is a natural segue from where they came from. Mm-hmm. And will they back out because there's a temporary supply chain issue and the company that they're backing isn't able to meet production goals? Oh, hell no. That's so anyway, that's why it looks like a stellar buy at this moment in time. And like you were saying, it's more about psychology in the market. Yeah. I mean, every time Elon tweets about buying some company, Twitter, people immediately assume, Manchester. Yeah. Well, now he's going to sell a bunch of Tesla stock. It's going to devalue the stock, so I better pull out. People are very skittish and nervous, which, by the way, is another reason that Elon should probably temper his comments a bit more, because those of out here that are invested in his stock don't like seeing all of these temporary blips. Although if you're doing day trading and you've got a straddle position and you're waiting for it to go up and down, you could make money by it being volatile. But anyway, that's my opinion on Lucid stock. It's a heck of a bargain right now. Any other questions, Jesse?
Yeah, we've got some questions back here, and you might need to repeat these for those guys up there on TikTok and Instagram.
Sure.
Says, well, this is just a statement I thought was pretty funny here from Peter. He's got a good point. There are only 2 reasons to wear sunglasses indoors: mastery of jazz and high-stakes poker. So we might have to get a poker table going here.
That's probably the best one. We've got a comment here. There's only 2 reasons to wear sunglasses indoors, and one of them is playing poker. At some point in time, all I want to say about my sunglasses is we will reveal why I always wear sunglasses indoors, and it will be a video, and it will probably be quite popular because that seems to be a common thread through the comments that we get on anything that we do, from videos to podcasts. But I'm enjoying the intrigue and the mystery at this point.
If it makes you guys feel any better, my mom texted me the other day. She's like, "Great job on the morning show, but what's with the glasses?" And I gave the same typical cryptic response, like, "Well, we have a bright future." And she's like, "Well, I know, but why?" And I was like, "It's okay, it's a secret. We can't really discuss it at this time. I'm so sorry." So even my own mother, who may be watching, is not aware of why. So you will all find out at the same time.
It's a trade
everybody
secret.
Else
Trade secret, yeah.
There we go.
My favorite comment, by the way, was from a viewer quite some time ago. And I usually do these videos in the service center, and I'm moving around and pointing out things. And anyway, his comment was, "Man, he sure moves fast for a blind man."
I like that one.
Any other questions before we move on, Jesse?
Yeah, we've got another couple here on YouTube. Let me pull a couple out of here. Why don't you guys move on to another article for just a minute?
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to shout out the YouTube channel who did a phenomenal review of the Lucid Air Sapphire. It's Extra Throttle House. Check it out. Fantastic review.
Called a Plaid Killer.
Plaid Killer. All right. So we had just talked about stock a little bit. we have an article here about Tesla stock. So, and it touches on similar feelings as the Lucid stock. And a lot of people are very short-term in their mentality when dealing with Tesla stock as well. People seem to think that Tesla takes longer to deliver than they should.
Cybertruck?
Like
Yeah.
Cybertruck.
Semi? Yeah.
Semi.
Okay.
Yep. And what we think is that this is mainly because Tesla shares what they're doing pretty early on in order to help other companies learn. So it's not a wholly selfish act, right? Elon in his statement, Tesla in their broader company statements, their goal is to transition the planet to sustainable energy. No one company can do that. No one group of people can do that, and they've come to that conclusion. And so they share this with individuals to get the technology out there to move us to a better place. Following that, you have to wait. Production isn't straightforward, right? They're not producing pens. Mm-hmm. It's not just click, does it right? Yes, okay, good, right? There are so many things that they have to work through, production bugs, and not just errors, right? They have to get up to capacity, right? Because this is a major, major operation, and that's the process. That's what has to happen.
Tesla is a refreshing company because they don't typically follow the corporate America culture regarding secrecy and protecting intellectual property. And maybe it goes back to their namesake. Nikola Tesla freely gave away patents, whereas his counterpart, Thomas Alva Edison, was a patent troll. He vigorously defended anything, even if it wasn't his. And I find that refreshing because, like you said, the overall goal is to transition this planet to sustainable energy, help us solve some of our global warming problems. And Tesla very much believes in that and is at the forefront of that and is willing to share. Now,
I agree, and it's with the statement that's refreshing. At some point in our history, in some point in time, people decided just to begin acting selfishly with the motive of profit, right? And then we can look at pre-Second World War, right? When Pearl Harbor happened, everybody jumped in together to go and fight this fight. Dishwasher makers were switching to making brownies or whatever, right? Everybody jumped in, and sometime after that, we kind of lost that common goal.
we had a common foe.
Yeah.
And truly, today there is a common foe. It's the health of this planet. And if we can just get companies and change that culture from this myopic, short-sighted vision to a more open, collaborative type effort, we could solve this problem. But it's difficult changing entrenched mindsets and cultures. So, but yeah, again, Tesla is refreshing in that regard. They're not afraid to share, and the reason for delays, of course, like we mentioned in the last podcast, there are many things outside of manufacturer's control, especially on the raw material side. It's like Elon pointed out, you can have 3,000 parts to put that car together, but a shortage of just one of those will prevent you from pushing cars out the door. But in the meantime, you have to pay all the vendors for those other 3,000 parts that you've had in inventory. So, yeah, producing I guess manufacturing anything is definitely a challenge.
It is. I mean, even Lucid and Rivian have had production delays and altered their production numbers multiple times, and even Ford, Toyota, and GM.
Yeah.
These are the big guys. These are the heavy hitters. These are the ones who you would not expect to have any delays just based off their size or influence and their capacity to produce. But this is a new field, right? This is new, and we have a world of issues going on.
A conversation we had with actually Martin Eberhardt last year spawned one of our videos, which was his speculation is that these new EV manufacturers are not spending the amount of time that Tesla did with their first generation car, the Roadster, in terms of safety and design and battery issues. And he was attributing some of those failures to the failures in the packs later on. You know, the GM recall with the batteries, the batteries catching on fire. He mentioned that Tesla spent an inordinate amount of time perfecting what they felt was going to be a very critical component in these EVs, fundamentally because there were no guidebooks written yet. They were the first ones doing it, and they were in uncharted territory. A lot of these newer manufacturers now have the benefit of Tesla's experience, and like Lucid, for example, with Pete Rawlinson having spent many years at Tesla working on the Model S battery packs.
The new producers also have, and the incumbent manufacturers now have, they have a new piece prodding them, right? It's now catch up to Tesla. It's not, well, let's produce this new thing and let's do it right and let's introduce this thing to the world. It's, they're doing this right. Yeah. And we're going to lose out if we don't start doing it. So we need to catch up.
You know, one element that's different in this market, though, which is refreshing, is there is no lack of demand. When you have a lack of demand, then you get cutthroat, competitive type, type efforts. I'm not sure that there is any need for that sort of thing because you could sell all of the EVs that are produced nowadays. Look at the waiting lists for cars for EVs. So that also helps this collaborative effort in the EV industry.
It does, and there's luckily no shortage of innovation in that either.
I think Jesse has a question for us.
Yeah, just kind of along the same lines of production and eventually mass production, especially if we get to this point. We had a question on YouTube. When are we going to see that $20,000 car, or will we ever?
Okay, good question. When will we see a $20,000 EV? Guys, they're already there. If you look hard. The Chinese manufacturers, and I mentioned this in the last podcast, the company called Kandi, K-N-D-I, they make an EV under $20,000, and with these new tax credits that are coming online again, this car could be as low as $10,000 for a brand new EV with a full warranty, and get you away from the internal combustion engine woes by no longer needing to go to gas stations, charging at home, and providing a clean method of transporting yourself around.
I'm pretty sure you can get like crate EVs from China for a few $1,000s that also, or they only do about 35, 45 miles an hour, and they only do maybe 50, 60 miles on a charge,
Right.
But there's all kinds of alternatives out there.
And they'll continue to emerge. We've got companies with the three-wheel vehicles, like Solo, for example.
Aptera.
Aptera, there you go. Futuristic design. It's kind of a fun time to be in the automotive business.
And this is just the beginning of the boom, right? This is, there was Tesla and there was nobody else for the longest time. And it seems within the past year, 2 years, everybody is really starting to kick this in.
They were all watching Tesla and saying, whoa, no one expected this. Remember GM came out with the EV1 in the 90s and decided, nah, there's not really a market for this. Boy, did they blow that.
Oh, yeah, totally. And give it a few years, We're going to have EVs standard on every dealer lot, if they're still around, within the next few years. And you're going to have Toyotas, Hondas, Lexus, Mercedes, all of them are going to be producing EVs.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a follow-up question, I think was from a question earlier we forgot to answer. What do you guys think about the Polestar Roadster? Have you guys seen that yet?
Seen it, impressed by it. Volvo is a strong incumbent and a long-time car manufacturer. I'm also impressed with these long-standing car manufacturers that are pivoting into the EV space because they're bringing a different discipline and quality standard into the EV market. They've had decades to perfect their production processes, and if they can pivot quickly and get into EVs, we're going to see some magnificent cars coming from those kinds of manufacturers. So we have a article about a Colorado-based battery startup called Silion, which has a patent for a silicon-based battery anode. There's some mystery here, but it appears that Tesla may have bought this company, and which is something that Tesla does. When they see cool new technologies, they will attempt to acquire that technology in that company and accelerate their ability to produce. But it's one worth watching. Unusual name. They're a developer of an advanced lithium-ion battery system to address the market for higher performance and energy storage. Anyway, Silion, S-I-L-L-I-O-N.
Okay, and you guys have any other articles you wanted to go over? Or Richard, do you pull another question from Instagram, maybe?
Yeah, let's take a look. Okay, so earlier Nicole had asked a question about it was the first question we asked, my memory. So she was wondering if this boom, if we're ever going to hit a wall with the demand for EVs and this ramped up production.
I think the simplest answer to that is take a look at how many EVs are out there in transportation and how many ICE vehicles, and the ratio is infinitely smaller in terms of EVs. They all need to be replaced. They all need to be changed out. And what will happen eventually is, as this transition occurs, cost of fuel will begin to increase exponentially because the plants that are refining have a certain fixed cost, and it's all based on how much is being produced. And as the numbers go down in terms of the production, the fixed costs for the infrastructure is going to remain. And as fuel increases, that will just drive people into EVs. And as we mentioned earlier, as EVs become less expensive than internal combustion engine cars, it's a no-brainer which one you'll select. So the transition is definitely going to accelerate, and it will reach an exponential phase at some point here within the next decade.
I feel that it's akin to the transition from the first cars, right? They're big, they're boxy, they're horseless carriages, right? And then we transitioned into aerodynamic vehicles, right? We recognized the wind is preventing this car from moving, or the air is preventing this car from moving. Nobody looked back. Nobody decided, okay, well, maybe maybe it's not necessary. That's the best way to do it, and that's just what it is. I think you're on point with that, and we're not really going to look back.
Agreed. Any other questions, Jesse?
So we have a couple of questions that still come in, and I would just, again, recommend go watch our video from yesterday on any structural pack questions. But the other thing, too, I think, we're going to take about 8 years before we see these, right, Pete, before they're off warranty?
Yeah, as far as our ability to do the reverse engineering and do deep dives into these products, it'll be quite a few years until they get past warranty. And then we'll start seeing customers. We have a interesting update on the tax credit issue, which is that car and SUV buyers can now explore a first ever tax credit for used and certified pre-owned electric vehicles. And again, we were talking about how rapid will this transition be? Well, that's definitely going to increase the interest in electric vehicles. Congress currently has passed legislation that devotes more than $360 billion to climate change efforts, which now includes a $4,000 tax incentive for use toward previously owned electric vehicles and a $7,500 credit for new EVs.
That's of huge benefit to somebody like me who is in the market.
Mm-hmm. And would love to get rid of their gas-guzzling pickup truck.
Yes, sir. I think $140 to fill both tanks is, I've had enough.
Yeah.
All right, I'm still going through questions over here. Do you have any other articles to pull up?
We do.
Yeah.
Did we want to touch on anything else with the taxes, the tax break?
No, I think we've got that vehicle. Oh, there we go.
Oh yeah, this one. All right, so we're all getting microchipped, right? There was a gentleman who had his hand implanted with a, what is it, NFC chip, the same type of chip that makes Apple Pay work, to open his Tesla.
I don't know if we can bring up that picture, but it's physically being implanted into his wrist, and he basically has the key fob in his hand at all times. No more leaving the house and saying, oh, I forgot my keys, let me go back inside. Or do what I did one time, which is set the fob on top of the car, drive away, get 10 miles away and say, ooh, I just realized what I did. So I got out of the car, I looked at the top of the roof of my car to see if that fob was there. Of course, it had blown off a long time ago. With the Tesla Model S, when you get out of the car and the fob is not with you, it shuts down, and now I'm shut down. So fortunately, I called my wife, and she retraced my steps and was actually able to find it on the road. It hadn't been crushed yet, and brought me my key. But this would eliminate that. Put the chip, put the fob right inside your body to unlock your vehicle. Yeah, pretty fascinating stuff. Definitely futuristic.
I'm on board with EVs.
Are you?
I am. I am totally on board with the EVs. This is a jump, though.
Yeah.
You know, I like my tattoos, and I'm all about that. Getting a microchip, I might need some, or a keyless key, so to speak. I might need some convincing on that.
And we should probably insert a disclaimer here. Do not try this yourself at home.
Yeah.
Have the professionals in a surgical, sterile environment do this type of implant. This is not a DIY or DIY project.
No, it is not. Not unless you want an infection and a very expensive hospital bill after.
Yeah.
Okay, we got another question. Not sure. It's from Mark on YouTube. So it says, are there standout leaders in storage solutions for the energy grid?
The expansion of the energy grid, I take it, is the basis of this question, or the overriding concern. How will all of these EVs affect capacity on the energy grid?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. You know, my answer to that is, if you watched the degree of implementation of expansion, except for California, of course, who has rolling brownouts for a variety of reasons. Technology usually solves their own problems like this. And here in Arizona, for example, the proliferation of solar definitely convinces me that we're on the right track. We're going to be able to handle the capacity or the demand for capacity. I travel to Europe often, being from Germany, and Germany has probably the fewest or the smallest amount of sunshine compared to Arizona, at least. And there are more solar applications there over the last 10 years than anywhere I've seen. I mean, even farmhouses in rural Bavaria with cows out in the fields have solar installations. I think we've solved that problem. We just have to continue to incentivize people to install solar systems. Now, we've got an interesting article here. Aston Martin, well-known car manufacturer, has developed a V12 600 horsepower Roadster, and the cost is over $300,000. So the question posed on one of the social media sites, the first question, of course, is why would you create an internal combustion engine supercar when within the next decade or two, you won't even be able to drive the thing on the road, and 600 horsepower doesn't impress anyone anymore. That's your average, low-budget sedan these days. When we're talking about like the tri-motor Sapphire at, over 2,000 horsepower. But they're proud of it, and it is a British brand. They've offered V12 with roofless motoring, they call it, and it is a boosted V12 engine in addition to that, and there's big power, they say, to back it up with a turbocharged 5.2 liter there's a hardtop available as well. There we go. And this one puts out 690 horsepower. It has an 8-speed automatic transmission mounted in the rear of the car. Now, the 0 to 60 sprint, though, is somewhat impressive, you know, at 3.5 seconds. And being a convertible, they say it can stand your hair up in a breeze and still reach a top speed of 200 miles an hour.
Wow.
But my advice to any ICE manufacturer at this point is drop the R&D in developing a more robust combustion engine and continue to focus on converting to electric, because that's where it's all headed.
Agreed. And at $300,000, that's 60 grand more than the Lucid Sapphire.
Exactly. So which would you want?
Yeah.
You know, a car that takes you from 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds or 3.5 seconds? Maybe it's the convertible aspect that they liked about this car, because I don't think the Sapphire is available yet in a convertible package.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, it's a beautiful car. You know, I will give it that. You know, Aston Martin does a very good job with aesthetically pleasing design.
They do indeed.
Speaking of aesthetically pleasing, Lexus is jumping on board with electric vehicles, and they're doing something that Tesla thought might not be a good idea. They're making a manual transmission electric vehicle.
Really?
Yeah, they are putting it in their sequel to the Halo supercar.
Okay.
So they're, and what I liked most about this was the quote from the president of Lexus. His motivation for this is he wants there to be more connection between driver and car. You know, there are very few things that compare to driving a manual vehicle, be it a motorcycle or car or truck or what have you. You have complete control over your power, over your ratio, and all that. In EV, it's instant, right? You just step on the pedal and it's just there. There's no shifting needed. But there's some rhythm, you know, when you're listening to music and you're able to be going through the gears, you know, there's something there. So I can relate to that desire as well. And I know that Tesla had some issues with this in the past.
They did with the Roadster. The Roadster originally had a gearbox and a clutch, 2-speed clutch. And they found they were burning them up because of the amount of torque. And a Roadster is only 288 horsepower. But despite that, it was because of the instant torque at 0 RPM that confused the technology of the day. So Borg Warner saved the day and gave them basically a transaxle, single speed. That's one of the reasons the Roadster top speed is not that impressive. It goes to 130 miles an hour and then peters out, because that's the end of the RPMs.
Well, it sounds like Toyota, who owns Lexus, might have a solution. In this, they're also touting a low 2-second 0 to 60 range and a 435 miles at full charge. So they're not sacrificing anything to be able to do this. From what it sounds like, we'll have to see what production looks like later on. But this is exciting. I'm very for this. How do you feel about it, Pete?
Well, I agree that there is a visceral experience that comes along with the traditional vehicles of the past. You know, shifting gears, for example, being able to control your RPMs, you know, the ability to drift and control that.
Even Dodge with their new
Dodge, exactly.
sound of their new car.
The Dodge Daytona coming out with that audio amplified exhaust note.
Yep.
I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get my head around that, because I'm used to the real thing, and it's more than just sound, it's vibration. You know, it's a lot of variation in sound too, and you throw in some additional sounds like tire squealing, you know, and before you know it, you've got the whole experience. But this newer generation may warm up to these kinds of new ways of doing it.
All right, we got another
Got a question?
kind of like a debate going on in our chat. Well, based on the question, does excessive regen damage your motor from the heat?
Does excessive regen, damage your motor from the heat? What's the basis of that concern? Yeah, regenerative braking, but what is the basis of that concern? Have there been examples of failures?
Well, no, that is the question. They want to know if we've seen that in our shop where people come in, is regen causing damage to their cars?
We have seen nothing like that. The only regen anomaly that I recall is when we had our T0, which was a vehicle that was way ahead of its time and was really the first fun electric sports car, which spawned and created Tesla, since both Elon and Martin Eberhard and team went to see AC Propulsion to look at this electric sports car that was beating Lamborghinis and Ferraris at Laguna Seca. It actually had some futuristic designs, not only vehicle-to-grid built into it, and this was in 1997, mind you, but it had variable regenerative braking. And I remember being able to dial that in, and it got a bit wonky when you went to maximum regen, because as soon as you let off the accelerator, your car was stopping pretty quickly. No issues that I recall with motor overheating or any kind of mechanical issues as a result of that. If you think about it, regen braking is probably one of the major technological breakthroughs, allowing you to scavenge energy that normally was lost. All it really did was wear down your brake shoes and wear tires as well. And with regen braking, you're actually able to harvest and scavenge that energy to recharge your battery.
All right, I'm trying to see if we have any questions. We are coming up on an hour, though. Do you have any other last points you want to do on your articles?
No, I think we're good with the content that we were going to provide this morning. Are there any last-minute questions?
I don't see any over here on YouTube. On Instagram, are we good, Richard?
I'm looking. Joke questions, something about a battle pass. Okay, in making EVs more affordable, do you believe Lucid entering this? Do you believe Lucid is going to enter into that segment of the market?
A good question. Will Lucid, which is currently a luxury car manufacturer, will they eventually get into the lower-end EV vehicles? I would say not anytime soon, because they're making their case with luxury vehicles, and once you have an identity like that, you try to stay with it until it becomes successful. But I think any of these EV manufacturers, as they get bored with their technology, will eventually realize that there is a huge market in the lower cost electric vehicles, and even the traditional manufacturers. For them, the luxury car market was a small subset of addressing the common or the main market. And eventually these EV companies will migrate to that. Any of you that have additional questions, feel free to go to our YouTube channel. We respond to questions that are posted there. And watch our latest videos. There's a lot of good content there. We appreciate you joining us, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. It's always fun for us. And we appreciate all of your support of our channels. Yes?
Make sure to let everybody know we have our Roadster Gallery comes out tomorrow. We'll be live again on Thursday.
Good. Roadster Gallery comes out tomorrow. What the Roadster Gallery is the over-the-top Roadsters that have hit our service center since 2013. We've done pictures of those and videos of those over the years. If you go to our website, Gruber Motors, there's a gallery tab, and you can see some of these really fine Tesla Roadsters. We now have begun shooting videos about these cars, and we're posting those every week on Wednesday. And these podcasts that we're doing are Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8:30 Mountain Standard Time. So be sure to join us Thursday this week when we have our next podcast. Again, we appreciate you. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Richard Beach. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next time.